Hello, friends. Welcome to the Pool Guides podcast. I'm Christian with River Pools. In today's episode, we are going to hear firsthand the journey of one pool buyer who, like many of you, set out to have a pool installed in his backyard for him and his family to enjoy, going from that to actually starting his own pool installation company after discovering one major opportunity for improvement in the pool buying process. If you're shopping for a pool now, or you will be soon, you should be able to grab several nuggets of information that will help you in your process from today's guest. Throughout this episode, you're going to hear several references to the River Pools brand in different contexts. Just keep in mind that when this story was unfolding, the River Pools brand was under different ownership than what it is today. Today's guest is the owner and operator of River Pools Kansas City, an independently owned and operated installation company. With all that said, I'd like you to meet my guest and your pool guide for the day, Jeff Sebek. What was the driving force behind having a pool installed in your backyard?
So the biggest driving force, and my now 11-year-old will remind me, he was very timid about getting in the water and just never wanted to swim. And I made a deal with him when I think he was 4. His name's Miles. And I'm like, all right, buddy, when you can swim, I'll put a pool in the backyard. Well, when you tell a 4-year-old that, they don't forget that.
No.
Angela and I had to pony up when he became a little fish. And so we had to pony up and put a pool in. So that kind of started my research for pools in 2018, 2019. I mean, I've always I like to tinker and draw, and I think I had a plan before I even found a pool builder back in the day. So kind of designed the entire backyard to make it fit and flow with what we have back there. But that's really what started our journey into this process, and did a ton of research on all the various pools that are out there. Had some firsthand experience with vinyl because that's what my brother has up in Nebraska. Had a lot of friends that had gunite pools, and the more Angela and I started talking, everything kept pushing us back to fiberglass. And, because my kids would swim all day long in our friends' pools and their toes would be all scraped up, and our neighborhood pool is the same way. And then the D36, which is what we have in our yard, really is what narrowed us, kind of led us to that path of river pools, is really how it all started.
Yeah. So you started it in 2018. When did your pool go in?
It went in, we went to contract beginning of 2020, and then our pool went in the ground August 11th of 2020.
So taking that much time, what did you think the buying process was going to be like, the buying and install process?
So I really didn't have an expectation of what it was going to be honest with you. I had heard from, some of the concrete companies that I talked to, they're like, well, a lot of companies were scheduling a year or 2 out. So that's really what prompted my process to start when I did, thinking that I'm going to have to get in a queue and then, go through all the processes to make sure I actually can get a pool, get it on schedule, and get it in the ground, whether it be at that time, in early 18, I hadn't decided what I was putting in yet. So that it wasn't really me being that much of a planner and didn't have that much foresight into it. It's just based on what I was hearing, anecdotally from neighbors and friends that had pools, that's how long it took them. So I'm like, well, I better get on it. It wasn't me being just over methodical in my process. It's just that was what I thought the expectation was going to be.
Yeah. And did you have expectations about the, specifically once you get into the buying process, like, helping make all your decisions? Do you have any expectations around the install process?
So I knew, Angela and I knew exactly what we wanted from our requirements were somewhat simple. It was pool with an automatic cover, just from the safety factor that came with a simple water feature. That was kind of baked in stone. So for the buying process, for me, it was really trying to find the best person to work with to get the pool in the ground. And at the time, there was only one option. We had settled on the D36 from River Pools, and at that time, there was only one game in town. So I talked to several. I think I talked to 7 different pool builders. For me, it's kind of just, yes, the end product matters a ton, but the experience of going through that process mattered a lot too. I wanted someone that I wanted to work with. I wanted to be happy with the end product. But I mean, reality is that putting a pool in is supposed to be one of the funnest things you do. So I wanted to try to carry that forward with my buying experience and making sure that I didn't, kick myself, and wanted to make sure that I got a great product and that it was fun along the way.
So Jeff and his wife set out to have a pool installed in their backyard, like many of you are considering. Although you may not be indebted to a child who's just learned to swim. At any rate, they had already determined that fiberglass was the best fit for their project in their backyard, and had even selected a particular model from the River Pools lineup. But as they entered the installation process, Jeff quickly discovered something that he felt he could make significant improvements on if he owned his own installation company. Your entry into the industry has a unique take. You didn't. I mean, your background is with Johnson & Johnson. You did some sales, some marketing. You worked for a biometrics company at one point. At what point did you feel like something could be better? Something could be better, and I could probably make that better. So just take me back to that point in time.
And for me, that biggest piece was from the time I signed the contract and signed on the dotted line to when we started. There was a pretty significant time gap where I heard nothing, couldn't get any feedback, was promised the world that, first it was May, then it was June, then it was July. And as we, spoke, it was August 11th before the process started. For me, that's when things started percolating that there's got to be a better way. I get it's construction and the timelines are not finite, but I really pride myself on knowing, and part of my type A personality, but I like to know what's next and I like to know what's coming. But the lack of communication and the silence that kind of occurred from the time that the money was delivered to the time anything even foreseeably started, that's really what, honestly, that's what prompted me to call River Pools and just ask if there's anybody else I could work with, see if they had any insight as to why my project hadn't started, because obviously it was a River Pools dealer at the time. And that's when I started talking to Jay. And in fact, Jason called me back a couple days after I left a voicemail. And that's really what started this whole process. Honestly, it wasn't on my radar. I remember Angela standing in the background, kind of overhearing my conversation with Jason that day. And she's like, "Are you buying a pool or a pool company?" And I kind of said both, like with kind of shrugging my shoulders and throwing my hands in the air. And it really started to kind of plant a seed of, man, can I do this? And can I do this better? For my friends that know me and my family, that I've always been a DIYer. I've always loved, tinkering and landscape and doing things outside. Like our house that we live in, I physically drew it to 1/4-inch scale. So I love that design aspect. I love understanding the things of how you're going to use something, how you're going to spend your time in it, to like, hey, maybe you should really strongly consider this and take a leap of faith. Because it obviously was a huge shift from being in the healthcare and the technology world. That I've always been a customer service guy. I mean, I love people and I love talking to customers. And it literally took all these building blocks of everything that I learned in my J&J career. And it was an entrepreneurial company that I started in the biometric space. I went from August 11th, my pool going in the ground, to me flying to Virginia and signing the dotted line to buy the franchise on August 28th. So very short window. Once I made my mind up, it was like, all right, pedal to the metal. If we're going to do this, we're going to rip the Band-Aid off and go. And honestly, when I bought the company, and Jason he kind of makes fun of me every now and then, I'm like, you know what? I can do like a side hustle. I'll do like 7 or 8 pools a year. I think I started with 5. By the time I got to Warsaw, I had 2 pools sold. So as soon as the ink dried on the franchise agreement, we were taking contract deposits, and we put our first 2 pools in the ground at the beginning of October. I was out meeting customers. I mean, they were taking just face value of Jeff, this new pool guy, that who the heck is this guy coming in? And we sold 26 pools our first year. So fast forward to May, I took a couple of the guys down to the train, and they're like, I go, "Hey guys, I got to step away for a second." And I quit my job from, via a phone call from Nashville, because it got really real really fast. So it went from like this floated idea to a holy crap, it's real, let's do it kind of mentality.
Yeah. So do you have a point in time when you knew definitively, like your mind switched? I'm going to do this.
It was 2 days after the pool went in the ground because I had talked to river pools enough, and in talking to Jason, I was from all the videos I watched on the website, I had a pretty darn good idea of how the process was supposed to flow. And a couple of days into the project, the pool went in the ground, and then I heard from nobody. I'm like, all right, guys, well, do we put water in the pool? Like, are we going to start backfilling this? No call, no response.
So the big motivating factor for Jeff to start his own pool company was silence, and it was abundant, apparently. With a ton of ambition and a fast-paced career change, a new pool company was born in Kansas City while his pool was being installed. But what challenges would they encounter during their first installations? And what rule was put in place early in the company's inception that they still abide by today? I'm really curious, as fast as you were moving into the industry, I'm curious to hear how your first project went. All right, so let's just tell us about the very first one, because again, you're going from the executive world into construction management, and there had to be some bumps along the way. Talk us through that.
Yeah, to make matters harder, that not only was the first project my first project, but we did two pools side by side as my first project. And they happen to be neighbors that, as I look out my office, I can see the house of one of the houses from my office window. So they were friends, neighbors, first projects, and two projects going on simultaneously side by side. So yeah, I mean, talk about ripping the Band-Aid off and just going in both hands, both feet, head first, whatever you want to say. And we started right at the end of October. So, we live in Kansas, so we knew winter was going to be knocking on the door any day. So there was the sense of urgency to get this thing done. So it was the perfect storm of, talk about starting at the worst possible time with everything. And we put the pool in, the first pool was scheduled to go in the ground on Halloween. We actually now have a rule at River Pools, Kansas City, not to put a pool in the ground on Halloween. Because the very, 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 very first pool that we rigged up, one of our brand new straps, we had bought certified straps from a certified dealer, and the strap was faulty, and we picked the pool up, and the strap broke, and it put a hole in the pool.
No.
Yeah, so talk about everything that could possibly go wrong did. But the homeowners were super gracious. We obviously took that pool. It went back to the factory for repair. Mm-hmm. River Pools is awesome to, I don't even know what magic straws they pulled out of their hat to get us a pool relatively quickly. We because both pools are scheduled to go on the ground the exact same day, side by side, one crane set them both. And then we got about 8 inches of rain, and then it snowed, and then it got muddy, and it was insane. But you know what? Pools are in the ground. The projects both pool decks were poured about mid-December. We got a little lucky with our winter weather rolling in. We were able to get the stonework done. We actually were building tents over the water features and the fire pit features we were building, so we could keep it warm, and then so the stone basins could work and blanket it all. So, and this very first of the two houses, we did a walkout. We turned a window into a walk-up basement. So all these things were happening in tandem. And luckily, because I lived in the same cul-de-sac, I was 100% oversight on these because, at this time I'm still learning. I think I called Jason. I think I had both phones, two phones in my ear at the same time, talking to Aaron and Jason and anybody that could send me lifelines to make sure I'm doing this right. But the homeowners are super gracious. Like I said, they're friends. And they stayed friends, which is the important thing. Stayed friends through the process. Both of those homeowners have referred me to, I don't even know how many, countless customers. But, they took a leap of faith on me to be their first customer. And, for me, it's like, don't screw it up. Failure was not an option.
Yeah. So again, taking a leap of faith, they got to put trust in you. So River Pools, Kansas City didn't start with one pool. They started with two simultaneously. Who does that? Jeff. Apparently Jeff does that. And he delivered. But should you roll the dice on a new pool company, one that has not yet sold and installed its first pool? Here's Jeff, pool shopper to pool company owner, sharing his thoughts on that very question. What would you say to a homeowner who is considering hiring a builder and their pool will be the builder's first pool? Because every great builder starts with their first pool. So what would you say to a homeowner who's considering hiring a Jeff Sebek who's like, hey, you know what? Glad you signed on. Listen, this is my first pool. What does the homeowner, how do they process that and maintain that trust? Because that's a tough situation, right?
It is a tough situation, and I think you have to trust the process. In fact, my landscaper that did my landscaping at my house around my pool, he hasn't done it. He had done mowing and some mulch, but never done a full scale landscape project. I figured out that, you know what, I was in that same boat just a few months ago, that I took the full leap of faith. I'm like, you know what, if I'm going to get the time and attention that someone doesn't want to screw this up, this being their first project, because they need 1 to turn into 2 to turn into 20 to turn into 100, that's going to be one of their better projects they ever do, because they really can't afford to fail on those first projects, because for them to create that snowball effect, it has to go as perfect as possible, and to have to leave the best product possible back there. And he was very honest with me. He's like, I've never done full landscape projects like this. And I think it was that level of humbleness and humility that attracted me to him. And I think if I was a homeowner, I do look for that in people. I'm like, you know what, this is your first project, but you know what, if you want to get more, you're gonna put your full, both feet forward on it, and create the best product possible. So I'm comfortable taking that leap with somebody, but I think a lot of it's asking the right questions as a homeowner, and just kind of seeking to understand what's going on. And I think any homeowner should be grateful to give someone a shot. I mean, I get it's a lot of money, it's a big investment, you're taking a big leap of faith, but if you as the salesperson, your character shines through enough.
Trusting a pool builder to put their very first pool in your backyard is indeed a leap of faith. But understanding that a new pool builder is in a must-win situation could work to your advantage. Speaking of the builder vetting process, what was Jeff looking for specifically as he interviewed several builders for his project? What he has to share might just be of value to you and your process.
For me, it's kind of just, yes, the end product matters a ton, but the experience of going through the process mattered a lot too. I wanted someone that I wanted to work with. I wanted to be happy with the end product. But I mean, reality is that putting a pool in is supposed to be one of the funnest things you do. So I wanted to try to carry that forward with my buying experience.
Yeah. What was it like talking to, you said 7 different builders? I mean, what were you gaining? Because every time you have a conversation, you can gain something, or you can, or choose to not take advice, right? I mean, what was that process like? 7 is that's a big number of contractors to speak to, and it must have been something you pulled out of that.
I did, and each one of them had a different approach, and they all seemed to offer something different. But the thing that stuck out with a lot of them, and I still remember one of the individuals that I spoke to. He was really big on bringing what's happening on the inside to the outside, and that really stuck with me. How do I connect the inside space to the outside space? Because at the end of the day, they're all connected spaces because they're all on your property. The other pieces were the process and the communication, and what people told me they were going to be providing along the way. That was a big piece of it. A lot of them didn't really, they were just going off my ideas and what I had sketched on paper. So they didn't offer a lot of new things to me. And but in talking to those, it's amazing that I thought I knew a lot, but I didn't know a lot about the industry and benefits of different pumps, and I really struggled with the heat pump versus a gas heater, and gaining their experience from those. So I was really leaning on them from a lot of anecdotal. Some have been doing it for 10, 15 years that, tell me what I don't know. But it was kind of it was more of an interview process than it was a buying process at the same time for me.
Well, you went in knowing you wanted a D series pool, but that aside, what mattered the most to you in the buying process? What was the one thing that just mattered the most?
For me, it was absolutely that, can I trust the person wholeheartedly that I'm going to be writing a check to, a substantial amount of money for? That's really, it really came down to the trust factor that I had with that individual, that company, and whether or not I felt like they were the right fit for me personally.
Right. Yeah. I'm glad you got the pool. I'm glad Miles got his pool. That's a super cool story. And now, several years later, you're here on the show as a pool guide yourself with your company. What would you say homeowners should do to prepare themselves as they're shopping for pool builders? So they're out there and they're talking to 7 different builders too. How do they select the company that is going to deliver that kind of an experience?
For me, it's twofold. I think they have to find the right product that meets their needs, whether it's a fiberglass pool or a gunite pool. They really have to figure out, live in that pool. I was kind of make them imagine like what their perfect pool day looks like. I ask them, I make them kind of think about when they go on vacation or when they go to the neighborhood pool. Where do you spend your time? How are you using the pool? If you've ever been a VRBO or whatever you've done, what are the things that matter in the pool? But I also will say, I just don't. I feel like what you need is not what we can do, and I can direct them to, this might be a better fit for you. But that's kind of the fundamental of it, of them knowing that's the right product for them. But then the second thing is, as I'm talking to them, I really stress, and I do leverage the whole luxury experience and the customer service experience. I tell them, like, make sure when you're meeting with customers that you are going to be intimately involved with them. For us, we're typically 8 to 10 weeks, just because the elaborate nature of our projects. I'm like, you're going to have to want to be around that person for at least 2.5 months, and want to feel like it's someone that you can trust. That when they're on site, you can have a very open, honest, candid, conversation with them. And that's the other big piece of it, and creating that trust with that customer. And because I want them to be comfortable with me. I want them to know that we're gonna try to vanguard and get ahead of all their things that are going to come up, because it creates some angst, and the yard's a mess. So for us, I mean, we're as much of a pre-construction company as we are a construction company. We are very methodical. I mentioned in our early conversation that we literally over-designed this project from the get-go. So we're going to have to break some eggs to get to this point, but really always try to help them know where it's going to end up. And that's why I said we're so methodical in our design process, in our pre-construction process, when we're together about a month and a half out before we actually break ground, of really just hand-holding them. They get a very long, thorough email because we throw a lot out them in about an hour as to what's going to happen, all the moving parts and pieces, and really try to overplan it. Because I think if people know what's going to happen kind of through and through, they'll have a much better understanding of that process. And it does take some of the angst and some of the worry away. But at the same time, even though we kind of pre-con this whole thing out and have a beautiful plan, things still come up. But that's where our daily communication then takes over in our text thread with all the stakeholders. That all the homeowners are on that group thread with myself and a few of our guys, just so they get a really good understanding of, hey, this is what's going to happen this day, down to the level of they know by name who's going to be in the backyard. And it's awesome. We have customers that they'll be one of my new guys on site. They're like, well, you must be Matt because I haven't met you yet. So they start figuring out who's who. And I love that, because my guys are also in that backyard. It's as much of an experience for my crew as it is for the homeowners, because I want it to be a great experience. And and we're 5 years in, but when we still learn daily on how to improve our process. We love our customer feedback to say, hey, I know you're communicating this to us daily, but give me a week snapshot. So now we give them like hey, this is what we anticipate over the course of the week. So now people can kind of plan for what's going to come next too. So we try to over communicate. So those are big pieces.
So figuring out the right type of pool for your project and for your backyard is important. It's one of the early decisions you need to make. But just as, if not more important, is selecting a builder who you feel you could successfully work with for at least 2 months. It's not only going to save your project, it's really going to help save your sanity. Jeff and the team at River Pools Kansas City decided early they don't want to just give good vibes to sell a pool. No, they want to deliver something truly unique in their market. You're going to want to listen closely to this segment as Jeff is going to share a measurement of success for his company that might just be useful for you as you seek to gain insight into the reputation of the pool builder you're considering.
I was leveraging my 15 years at J&J and my years of starting the biometrics company. I've always been in a sales, marketing role of some type. And it really came down to creating a great customer experience. And that was literally what was the foundation when I started. It's still our foundation today. And that was something that was beating us at J&J, that customers, not the customer is always right, but the customer is what matters most. Because without customers, we don't exist. So that was the biggest thing that shaped our company about the buying experience, how we engage with customers, how we truly understood and listened to what that customer wanted. My goal, and if you're ever on a sales call with me, my goal is to talk at least like 10% of the time and let that customer, sell their vision, sell their dream to me, and let them talk 90% of the time. If I'm talking too much, I'm overselling, I'm overstating, I'm controlling the conversation. But I really wanted that experience to start from the second that I got on the phone with them, or the second that I was able to step into their house with them, to get a full understanding of why they're putting a pool in, what their motivations are, what matters in that buying experience. And I always heard the same theme. It's like, all right, we want to know when you're going to start. We want to be communicated to regularly. So it was all those are, and they're simple things, but it just doesn't really exist in the industry around here. We really pride ourselves on over communicating. Are we perfect? Absolutely not. Do we try really, really hard? Of course. And I think we're humble in that we're kind of self-deprecating. We tell customers, like, when we make mistakes, which we do, we tell customers, that this is not going to be a perfect process. This is a massive construction process, but it's just trying to put them at ease because, for us, we're not living in that backyard every day. But when I was putting a pool in my own yard, I was living in that backyard every day, looking out my window, thinking like, all right, what can I do to make this go faster? And I haven't forgot that. So, yes, we have delays in projects, we have weather, we have things that happen, but like I mentioned earlier in the conversation, that this is truly a luxury buying experience. No one has to have a pool. I tried to bring all those elements to the forefront. And with that, that's really launched our success. I mean, we live off 80 to 90% referral basis, and everything else comes through leads from River Pools. But that's for me the sign of a healthy company, when most of my business is coming from referrals. We have a pool company that we do refer out for closings, service, winterization, and I love hearing from him. He's like, his name's John. He's like, Jeff, he's like, you're the only pool builder that when I go to all your houses, and he's probably been to 100 of them now, and he asked all of them, you're the only pool builder that people consistently say they'd use you again. And for me, that's very telling that our process is working to create that great customer experience. Once again, are we perfect? Absolutely not. But that customer buying experience, from the minute they meet us to the time they're doing their first cannonballs, is important. And we carry that on. We text all of our customers on a daily basis as to what's happening.
Any other items of value we can pass along to the homeowners who are listening or watching this particular episode?
Yeah, for me, it's take your time. I think people get the idea of a pool, and while it's somewhat of an impulse buy. I mean, it's a big financial impulse buy. But even though you're like once you kind of make your mind up, you're like, let's put the pedal to the metal. I want to start as soon as possible. Do your due diligence, not only in the design process. Make sure you know exactly what you're getting. It just makes the entire experience and the entire project run a lot smoother, because you, as the homeowner, you know what you're buying. Your contract aligns to that design. You know what your hired contractor scope of work is going to be. Do your due diligence and know exactly what you're buying before you sign it on the line. We will not go to contract with a customer until we have an agreed upon design. and that design aligns and flows with the contract. So it actually matches to a T. If we don't do landscape, we pull the landscape out of the design so they have a really good feel of what it is.
Yeah, good stuff.
The other thing is just have fun with it. Like I mentioned very early on, I mean, I think building a pool should be one of the most fun experiences you have. I mean, take pride in what you're getting and have fun with that process. I mean, and then building the pool should be the funnest thing, just because, building a house is, 6 months, a year, 2-year process. With our pools, you see a lot of change in an 8-week, which for some it seems like a long time, but for some that's not that long. But enjoy that process, and just like I said, always keep that end in mind, and the end reward of you and your family and friends back there. So always keep the end in mind of why you're doing this, and don't lose sight of why you're putting your pool in. I do have conversations with homeowners sometimes. I'm like, all right, remember why we're doing this. Sometimes just the process, weather happens and things happen, and like,
yeah,
hey, but we have an end goal. We know what's going to happen. We know what it's going to look like. Just don't lose keep the faith during the process.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't get lost in the moment. Remember the vision. Designing and delivering a customer experience unlike anything else in his market is paramount. And hopefully you picked up on that measurement of success he uses to gauge how well Riverpool's Kansas City is performing. For you and your process, of course you're going to call and get different references, but hopefully one of them is to call area service companies and get their thoughts on the reputation the builder you're considering has. So about 5 years in, let's take a look at some of the backyards that Jeff and his team have built in the Kansas City area. Let's take a look at some of your fantastic builds, because you've got a bunch. Stop me just to talk about these projects a little bit. Dining space, another fireplace is kind of hard to see. Auto cover, yes.
Auto cover, yep. And then we did these kind of, so where the furniture was stored in this one, we kind of built a hidden wall they now have a hot tub slid in there. So they really didn't want to see the sides of like a freestanding hot tub. So we did this raised bar wall. So they actually now have bar stools. So when the people, if rather than doing a full integrated sunken hot tub, they kind of wanted this more simple, just above ground hot tub they could put on their pool deck. So we created this cool shaped L wall to kind of hide the traditional above ground spa. And then tied all together, we did that rectangular planter in the other corner just to kind of give it some dimension. This was a garage on the left-hand side of this photo, and we added those sliders and did a full pool house with bathroom, full wet bar, laundry rooms, pool storage off of that patio area to kind of help connect those spaces together. So they had outdoor bathroom in some of those spaces all connected together. We did full landscape. There's fire features galore on this. Very, very cool project.
It looks very cool. All right, 2026. What's ballpark on this one? And let's exclude the indoor components. We're just talking the outside pieces. So
yep. So the outside pieces were right around 285 on this one.
Okay. But man, it looks like they just have hours and hours of fun out here with family and friends. And what I really find interesting is that this is a great aerial view, top down, of this entire project, and I cannot see the pump and filter system anywhere. So you guys probably spent a bit of time figuring out where to place those things so they're out of sight, out of mind. Well, absolutely. Out of sight, not out of mind, because you need to maintain your pool properly. But yeah, it's good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Any others they're all noteworthy, but any others you want to just talk? Look at this water feature. Tell us about this.
So this one, the comment I mentioned about bringing the inside out. So this particular project, this homeowner has arched beams. They have a 2-story living room, and there's arched beams. We actually matched the radius of the arched beam from their upstairs. When you're upstairs in their kind of catwalk area looking out, the radius of the arch inside matches the radius of this arch on this feature to a T. They didn't want a handrail. We actually centered this water feature on the living room windows, which are centered on the beams. And then this can double as a handrail, so they can it can kind of hold on to the waterfall to then step down into the pool. So it served a lot of purpose. But yeah, that's just our attention to detail. When I mentioned bringing the inside out together, was a fun feature to make that all work. And then down at the end is just a simple little jump rock They have littler kids, and that's a great spot for them to, the adults can hang out on the shallow end, and the kids can jump off a little rock just to, it's only elevated like 14 inches. So just a good little fun spot to jump off of to, get a little extra cannonball action.
Yeah. Good stuff, man. Again, phenomenal work. This
Yeah,
is one of your
this was a
favorite
lot of
builds.
fun.
We were
Yeah,
talking about this one earlier. Tell us about it.
yeah, this was the first time we did a full freestanding fireplace. The customer had very specific visions and ideas in mind, of down to how we sloped the block to make that fireplace flow, and it kind of became the focal point. This is a kind of a long, skinny, narrow backyard, so we were trying to leverage the amount of space we have. So really, really, leveraging that long linear feel that they had, but still give it some curve and some nice elements. The one of the funnest things we did in this one was the cantilever jump pad. So that's actually all monolithically poured cantilever concrete on a rectangle pool. It's hard to create a grotto effect where you can, float your raft underneath there and have, that's all heated and treated water. So you have warm, if the heater's on, you have warm water dumping over your head. So they love this idea for the kids to have a spot to jump off of, but then kind of create this grotto effect. That's an LED lit cascade in there, which you can sync it to match the pool colors. Full standalone spa, so that's a year-round spa package, so it doesn't actually flow into the pool. So
Okay.
they're able to enjoy that spa year-round. Integrated turf strips. They're on the backside, which you can't see in this. Did kind of another cool wall, kind of how we transitioned to their existing deck, but really brought this whole project together. There's walkout basement doors kind of off to the right, kind of where those turf strips are, and to really just connect the whole space. They got really great views from inside. Added some great features. But yeah, that cantilever jump pad was honestly was like a 1 or 2 a.m. vision that I kept getting asked for something cool to create a grotto effect on a pool. I'm like, well, I don't know how I do it except for big limestone natural blocks, but a lot of our homeowners want kind of this cleaner, more sophisticated look. So we came up with this whole. I mean, we had it engineered to make sure it was good, but that actually cantilever is 2 foot over the pool, so the water actually
Really?
spills and the cascades on is almost 3 foot into the pool. So it just creates a really cool visual effect. Awesome
Mm-hmm.
place to jump off. I think they took homecoming or prom pictures on that cascade wall with all the kids kind of
Mm-hmm.
piled up on it. So just creates it was a great backyard. The homeowners were great to work with. That one's actually in my same neighborhood. So
And you're touching on the jump pad feature here. Of course, I'm with the manufacturer. Always lean on your builder to give you the best guidance around those sorts of things, because you guys know the local codes and what can work and what doesn't work, for your for your pool. But man, this thing looks amazing. All right, so now I got to ask again. Is this concrete decking?
yeah,
Poured
that is
concrete?
just traditional brushed concrete. We
Okay.
added turf strips just to soften it up a little bit.
The fire pit, is that gas? Is that log? What's the fuel source?
It's a natural wood burning fireplace with a gas start actually. So they're able to get the fire rolling pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, all natural stone. There is no manufactured stone in this project, so it's all natural
Oh,
stone.
okay.
Natural
Okay.
stone tops. Everything is all natural stone.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. So 2026. What's the ballpark on this one?
About right around 300 with a year round spa, and yeah, right around
Mm-hmm.
300 for this project.
Yeah. It's beautiful, buddy. And I've seen pictures of this at nighttime. It's even prettier. As you can see, Kansas City does some amazing work, and they truly enjoy their time designing and building backyards that they know are going to deliver years and years of wonderful memories for the families they have the privilege of serving. But before my conversation with Jeff ended, I wanted to dig a bit deeper on that career change. What seemed to me to be a personal challenge, or maybe even an investment at the time, turned out being something much more. So what motivates you today? You guys are happy. You're doing about 40, 50 pulls a year. Your crew is rock solid. You seem happier than ever. And what motivates you? What do you enjoy most in this?
So, man, my motivation comes. It's not. If you can see, I got goosebumps right now. My motivation is sometimes I get emotional. But so I mean, first and foremost, I mean the customers we serve. I mean, I'm friends with a lot of our customers. People that I didn't know. Maybe they were a friend of a friend of a referral that I see them around town. Where I live in Kansas City, kind of a lot of our pools are Southwest Johnson County. I bump into my customers all the time. And just, hearing them, and I get hugs from them. We're all bumping into a family member like, oh, you built their pool. We love your pool. We're there at their house all the time. So if that's not motivator enough to continue to do what I do, because I mean it's hard. There's a lot of days that, man, you just want to beat your head on your desk, and it's if this was easy, everybody would do it, but it's not. I mean it's providing a huge service, and so that's a huge driver. You've met almost all my team. They're also a huge motivator. I got an incredible group of guys that I was able to, by starting this company, I was able to create opportunities that I don't know maybe they would have had. They're very talented, but I created this culture of guys that they like to be around each other. They hang out after work. They hang out on the weekends. We do a kind of a fun thing. There's a really great steakhouse here in town. We do a monthly dinner, just where we all can kind of kick back and relax. I mean, now the staff at the restaurant knows us. Last night we were there and we hadn't been there since November because of the holidays. And they're like, where have you guys been? They actually missed us. And then just the time, I actually get more time with my family. I used to, my last role for the biometric company, I was on a plane from Monday through sometimes Saturday, and missed a lot of time with my kids. Now I get to coach track for my son. I don't miss any of my daughter's dance stuff. I actually get to coach my son's football team as well. I'm home for dinner almost every single night, except for the occasional night out when I take the crew out. But the lifestyle that it's afforded to be a working dad, but a dad that's around. I mean, I'm my own boss. I mean, I kind of tell the guys I work for them. They don't work for me. They always kind of chuckle, but there is reality. I work hard for them so that they can be smarter at what they do and do better at what they do. But those are my three biggest motivators of delivering what we do, and having the team around me, and then being able to provide for my family, and just like I said, and be around and be a dad and a husband, and enjoy but the value that I get, the reward. I look, I always have to take a step back at the end of the year, and I'm like, because there's weeks I work 90 hours a week, which is a lot. It's more than I've ever probably worked ever. But when you take a step back and see the work that you're doing, the reward the customer has, and how much they love their pool, that makes it all worth it.
What a great story. Thanks to Jeff for sharing his time and expertise with me and with you. Hopefully your key takeaways are that as you're vetting pool builders in your area to help put together the project you have in mind, you're looking for somebody who you can spend at least 2 months with. Someone you can trust, who's going to deliver informative answers when you have questions, and someone who is going to communicate relentlessly with you throughout the entire process. We hope you found this information helpful. And keep an eye out for an upcoming episode by hitting subscribe and the notification bell, particularly if you're in an area known for having harsh winters. We'll be meeting with Michael Bowers of Pool Pros Wisconsin to chat about choosing the right type of pool for cold climates. I'm Christian with River Pools. You've been listening or watching the Pool Guides Podcast.